小人物上篮，把影片里
就是个屁孩呀！
欢迎收听。
各位乡亲，喜大条件不与大家欢迎收听小人物上篮。我们今天是一个非常非常特别的时候，我很紧张，为什么？因为我们有第一次超级教练来到我们的节目，所以从这个时刻起，我要开始转成英文模式了。So, our very first professional basketball head coach who has the most complete and fascinating basketball resume than any of us have ever spoken to. He's been coaching over the world, multiple continents back and forth, including the NBA, Canada, Turkey, Korea, Vietnam, and now in Taiwan. There's so much to learn from. I can't wait to hear his stories. It's so exciting. Let's welcome the head coach of New Taipei City Kings, Coach Ryan Marchand. Coach Ryan, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on here. Feels like I'm kind of getting back into season mode now being on here. So glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. How has the summer been for you? What does, before we get into any questions, what do you do? What does a basketball coach do in the off season?
Yeah, I'd say, coaches still, what coaches should be doing, just like what players should be doing, is they should always still be getting better. Mm-hmm. They should be working on their craft somehow. Mm-hmm. So for me, whether it's this team or any other team, you're always learning. You're always taking what, you learned from the previous season and adding that into, your knowledge base of what you have and trying to improve on that. Mm-hmm. Whether that's coaching, drills, film, player development, anything and everything. You take what you took from last season, right. You learn from that, the notes that you take over the season, and you just try to improve on that and get better. Just like, a player has more information, they try to get better on the court. They try to learn some new skills, get better at some certain things. Coaches are doing the same thing. So I keep busy in a lot of different ways, whether that's, basketball wise, leadership wise, trying to learn in all those different assets or in all those different ways, just so I can improve on me, so I can help the guys that I'm trying to help be better.
Okay. But do you take time off? Gone fishing? Is that real for you? Does that apply to you?
Yeah, no, there's definitely some time off that's needed. I think, I find, certain times of the day that's good to work, especially, if I want to take a little bit of vacation, get away, mentally, I think it's good, and sometimes waking up early in the morning and getting a few hours of work done, and then I can start my day, have the rest of the day to do whatever I need. I think finding a little bit of a balance is good. But, even if I'm on vacation, I can find different ways to do work, which I think is good. So I keep busy, but I make sure I take advantage of my time off, because during the season, you don't really get time to do that.
No, you don't. And it's hard. It's a long season, and it's grueling, right? You don't ever get time to even mentally take a break off. So I think it's important. I mean, nowadays people talk about mental breaks, mentality, psychology, mental aspect of things. I think it's real. So I'm glad that you're doing well too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you can do simple things, even if you can't go on a trip or a vacation, or, whether, you might not be able to see family or spend time with friends, taking an hour or two out of the day to yourself, whether that's, exercising, going riding a bike, be out in nature, go for a walk. You can do simple things throughout the day to keep your mind right and, keep you at an even keel, so you don't get too high or too low.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay.
So may I ask some follow-up questions?
Sure, Con.
Are you still in holiday mode? Like, are you preparing for the next season? Because we all know that there's a roster change in New Taipei Kings. So have you followed up that yet?
Yeah, no, I've actually been a big part of, moving through with the roster. Obviously, after the season, I didn't have a new contract, and we were working on that, but I was still planning as if I was a coach, and I had a lot of good communication with our ownership and our GM, through that process. So, essentially since we lost Game 5 of the playoffs, the very next day I was already planning for next season. I was getting through a lot of different stuff, making sure I was ready to go. Because a lot of people rely on me to be able to produce, and I need to be able to do that at a high level. So there has been some holiday mode, which has been good. I've been able to get out and do some things, but I've kept very busy and been very up to date with everything that's been going on with our team.
Wow.
Oh, it hurts like it really different from the podcast you record with Quan.
Yeah. It's well, I'm that was right after our season. I've had a few months to myself now, which is good. So I've kept busy, but I'm in a good state of mind. It's a new year. Last year was last year. So our focus is on being better for this season, and this season is going to be different than last season. So it's good to move forward and leave the past in the past.
Well, that's good. So actually, well, in such case, if you're talking about Kings, let's talk about the Kings. So if we were to look back on the season, really, and give yourself a grade out of 10, 10 being the best, what would you give? Why would you say that?
I'm a harsh critic. I would probably lean. I'd probably lean more towards like a low 6, probably if I were to grade. I think
that's
we
not
had
even
some
a pass in college by college standard.
No, it's not a pass. It's not a passing grade, but I think we did some good things. I know we had a major effect on the league. I know a lot of the stuff that we were running on the floor, especially on the offensive end. A lot of teams in the league started taking the stuff that we were doing and doing it themselves. So, a lot of teams copied from us. So, I think being able to, show a different style, I think was good, but, not being able to be there from the beginning of the season and really get the details of our system in was very hard. Getting to know the players late, having to get to know them throughout the season and get to know the coaches late. Obviously some of our struggles. I'm not grading the injuries when we had guys out, but overall, I just think we could have done better. I could have done better. And so that's where I guess I keep my fire to have a better season this year than we did last year. So that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair and honest, right? I mean, you closed the season 1-8, but a lot of that is due to COVID, right? You can't fight that. But you still made it to the playoffs, and you put out a good fight against the Lions, right? It was a narrow loss in Game 5. And I mean, as a new team, finished 4th despite COVID, finishing one. That's actually pretty impressive. I mean, I'm not saying like making excuses for you, but you can't change COVID, right? So there's nothing that you can go back and change that. But if you could change something that you've done or just your strategy looking back, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I think basketball is the easiest thing to change. You can always look at whether it's plays or defensive schemes or different things, but I think being able to get the staff all on the same page, making sure everybody understands everything, making sure, we're all coaching the same thing, making sure the players understand every detail, that, there's one voice for that. I accept everybody's voice within our organization, but there's ultimately, one way that we're doing everything. So whether that's me being a better, leader, communicator, or, not allowing, certain things to be said, I think, the communication and leadership needs to be improved. The basketball stuff is the easiest thing to change, and doing all that different stuff. I think that's where you'll see a lot of different changes this season you'll be able to see the basketball side of things, not as much the behind the scenes stuff, but I think that's what needed to be changed most.
So it's something very interesting. I was thinking from your perspective, because you come to a new team and the team is new. So it's not like they had a previous coach and then got fired and then you replace somebody and you try to implement. No, everything's brand new. So you don't have any track record. You don't have momentum that you're trying to pull back or anything. So what would you say? How do you build a team from scratch almost? Start a coach a team from scratch, let's just say.
Yeah. I think the unique thing about it was in Vietnam, I was in the same situation.
Oh, so
yeah, I had come just the previous year from doing that. I was with an expansion team. I didn't have a preseason to work with my team while all the other teams were working. I got there about, a week and a half, 2 weeks before the season started. So everything was brand new, and actually going through the interview process, I told the team, like, hey, I have some experience doing this. And when I was thinking about reaching out to some other coaches, like, hey, what would you do with a new team?
That is interesting.
Most coaches are never in a situation where you're with an expansion franchise, and I did it 2 years in a row. And so I think,
not for the third time.
Hopefully not for a third time. It's very, very difficult. It's more difficult than people
think.
There's
no joke.
Right?
No, yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest thing is building your roster. There's going to be gaps in your roster. That's a very, very big thing. And then just being able to build the system, being in the Spurs system for a year and learn from some of those coaches. It takes about a year to implement the system, and not having a training camp where I can go through the details and really, stop a drill if it's not going right and teach, all the details. That's very, very important. And it looks like I'll get the chance to do that this year for the very first time.
Right.
It's been essentially, I think this will be my fourth year kind of in this situation. It'll be the first time I'll get a preseason with a team and training camp sort of situation, which is great. So I think that's the biggest thing. You'll have gaps on the roster, being able to learn the system from scratch, and hopefully you can build a little bit of momentum where you can show that you did some good things. And even though we didn't end great, I think we did some very good things throughout the season. And even though we ended up in fourth, we were the first team to make playoffs. We were on a great run.
Right, exactly.
Chris goes down with an injury. Tom goes down with an injury. End of the season, we get Byron in late, who comes out of retirement to come play with us. Half of our team gets
for 3 games.
A lot of stuff went on. It's just the reality of what happened. But I think overall we did some very good things, and we're looking for this next season to build upon that.
Oh, that's so precious. I mean, who can have your kind of resume again, right? That's some real unique experience that you had. So that it brings me to the question of, usually when a coach interviews for a team, he kind of has an idea of what the team is like, right? But you don't, right? You didn't, and especially, and this is the question I always think about is that we talk about coaches and they always have their philosophy, the playing style that they favor, right? But then you don't even know what kind of roster that you're gonna get in some sense. So what do you have? What do you do? Do you have this mindset of what kind of offense that you're gonna run or defensive scheme, and then try to make the roster fit to that, or do you observe and then see if you can implement something that would fit this roster?
Yeah, well, I think it's unique. So I think the first thing when there's no roster, you really want to know that the people that you're interviewing with, that they're grounded in reality, that their expectations aren't insane.
Okay.
Because I
thought every GM wants to win the championship.
And I'll give you some information. It probably happens in the NBA, every single league, every team, no matter how good or bad, their ownership, their front office, they all think they're going to win the championship, and they all think their players are good enough, and there's nothing wrong. You might have some teams that know they're in a rebuilding year, but most people think they're going to win a championship. But you don't want to hear an ownership group in front office talk about winning a championship when you don't even have one player on the roster yet. So have a little bit of reality with that situation is good. And I did get that from the organization with the Kings. That was great. They didn't have expectations that were, blown off the roof originally, which to me was very important. But I know a type of system that I like to run. I know that I can put guys in the right spots. And when I was talking with James Mao mostly throughout the process after I got hired, especially not knowing the local players, the imports more come from my end because I have those connections. I coach with a lot of these guys. Right. for me, it's really telling him what type of player I need. And so being able to tell him the types of players that I need, right. And then the people who know the players, whether that's James, whether that's, anybody else in our front office ownership that knows some of the players over here, right. They try and get those players to fit our system. And I think we did a pretty good job of that, fitting guys and being able to put them in different places. And then it's really up to the players, if they're smart, if they understand the system. Ultimately, you can be a great player, but if you can't execute what we're trying to do, it's going to be hard to put you on the floor. But being able to know the types of players I need and us try to go get those types of players is really important towards building a new roster.
Yeah. And so speaking of, you mentioned previously, about communications, right? And now you have a roster, right? And you, essentially at this stage, you have the roster with players, with the skill set that you think that's going to fit, right? A certain playing style, the skill set that they have. And now it gets down to the detail of implementing things. And you mentioned communication. This is probably the art of coaching, right? One of the most important aspects of coaching. So you as a foreign coach, right? And you coach all over the world. What was it like for you first, being in a foreign country, coaching to players that didn't speak English growing up and have to get that message across? What was it like for you?
I think so. The first time when I worked with the players in Turkey, I coached with them actually in the United States, but the team that was in the Euro Cup level, which is right below the Euro League, they sent their players over here to the United States, and I worked with them throughout the summer. And that was my first time working with players that didn't speak English. And from then, I went to South Korea over the summer. I worked with the team over there. Actually, KPC, which is going to be in the East Asia Super League, I worked with them for a summer with all their local players, then Vietnam, now Taiwan. And the biggest thing is, basketball is kind of its own language, which is pretty good. Players are going to understand if you show them. You have to slow down your talk a little bit, but if you kind of show them what you need, that's really important. But to soften the language a little bit as you learn, you have to know what the hell you're talking about. That's the number one thing. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to be able to get the players better. Everyone talks about being an ex-NBA player, being an ex-pro, being somebody that's famous, this or that. And that's great initially, but if you can't get guys better, it doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done. You have to care for the player, and you have to be able to get them better. And people can understand when you're putting the energy, the effort in. If you know what you're talking about, you can get guys to work, get guys to sweat, get them to buy in. That translates across any language, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of language, we heard that in Kwang's podcast, you said that you know Chinese. So can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah. So essentially when that came up, our organization, I think through their YouTube channel, they would do like a weekly recap week of our games and what happened. And I can't remember which week it was, but sometime during the season, we were playing a game, and I think we were actually playing the Lioneers at the time, and Kyle got into it. I think I think it was Elliot. I think he fouled him, pretty hard, and we're looking for an intentional foul, and there was a little dust up at half court, and he was talking, I think, to a ref, and I started to stand in, and Kyle usually doesn't speak much English with me, but he started saying something in English to me, and for me to calm down, I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I speak Chinese." And it ended up being on the recap, and a lot of people were just like, "Oh, he speaks Chinese," but I made him laugh. Like, it made the conversation basically stop. Yeah, it worked. It softened up the situation a little bit. And so from then on, a lot of people saw that and it's like, "Oh, you speak Chinese." So it's just kind of become a phrase like, "Yeah, I speak Chinese." So that's probably something I'll use this season. Like, don't worry about it when my guys are mad. I speak Chinese all the time.
Yeah. I have a friend who posed the first like, 我是台客. I was like, I am 台客, just to like anything Taiwanese. I got it. I'm Taiwanese, So, right. But do you actually speak some Taiwanese? How many phrases have you picked up?
I mean, I know some phrases, and the first ones I learned weren't phrases that you want to say on air.
Yeah, I know everything. Yeah,
but, those are the ones that the players taught me, but hopefully, me being over there, knowing that I'll return, I'll be able to pick up a little bit more. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you know what paise? Do you know what paise means? Paise.
No, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, it's a Taiwanese. That means I'm sorry. Like sorry. So like my bad.
Oh, okay.
Paise. And on the field, you just hear that a lot. Like paise. If someone makes a mistake, pass to the audience, like paise.
Yeah, you can try
like,
to hit somebody and then say paise.
That's me.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Just like, don't care, it's your fault. Just do it right.
Yeah. When I was playing in Taiwan, we played Ultimate in Taiwan, and there was a whole bunch of foreigners, and it was like, the first you need to learn, paise. Like, my bad.
Right.
Okay. So that's getting to Taiwanese basketball culture a bit. Now you've seen all over the world. What's it like? How's coaching in Taiwan different from, let's say Canada, Vietnam, or Korea? Just so to speak.
Yeah, I think, Vietnam, as I've explained to people, Vietnam is, when it comes to basketball, they're kind of like in the birth stage of basketball.
Okay.
They're just starting.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's brand new there. When I was there and talking with some of the players and some of the coaches that have been there, they said 5 to 10 years ago, you couldn't find any basketball courts anywhere in the country. And now they're popping up everywhere. So they're really new. They're just growing and trying to build, their program, their entire system, trying to get the entire, country behind their backs a little bit. And so I think they're doing a good job getting some, as they call it, some heritage players, some, foreign born with, Vietnamese roots, getting a lot of those players over there, which is helping build it. And like I said, I think there's a lot of excitement over there. People are enjoying it. People are realizing they can just go out and play with their friends for fun. It can be a lifetime activity. So it's new over there. Canada had a good league, but I thought it was marketed super poor. Very, very, very disorganized. But the level, like, you get some very good players out there. Actually, very underrated. I think because it was so disorganized, a lot of people, whether that be in Europe or higher leagues elsewhere, they kind of wrote off the league and wrote off the players. Like, why are you playing in this league? Why are you playing in Canada? It's not good. But there's some very high level players over there, that could play at a high level in Europe, and some guys have. So it's good there. And, Taiwan, I think the level is very high, for Asia. It's very good. And I think the level that it's going to continue to grow, I think it's going to continue to grow, especially with the league that we're in. Yeah. I think it's just going to keep getting better, having the East Asia Super League, having, high level imports, being able to continue to come and play, and having these players continue to play against those guys day in and day out. It's going to make for a very high level of play that I think is just going to continue to grow. But it's a very good level of play.
So may I ask?
Sure.
May I ask something that I don't know whether can be broadcast out there. We have a rumor saying that in Taiwan, those players shooting free very badly. So we got buzzer beater for Chinese Taipei. Yeah, Jordan. And
Jordan.
I don't know what the country.
I saw the game.
Yeah, I saw the game. Everyone, there's no escape.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the charism. You said in Taiwan, our basketball level is very high. But what do you think about our skill set in Taiwanese players? So are they able to compete in international level?
Yeah, absolutely. The players are good enough. Obviously, it's no secret that Taiwan doesn't breed a lot of super big players. Probably some of the biggest Taiwanese players are, 6'7", within the country, which isn't very big for, it can be, if you have a good skill set, you can still do some good damage and as a big, but you don't have a lot of true bigs in the country, which hurts. But with the players know how to play. You have very good skilled players. And I think having the tools necessary, I think, is going to continue to grow. I think being able to get into the weight room, being able to improve, the diets of what you eat is a big thing. And I think just getting, high level work in, understanding, what that is, understanding what you have to do. Anybody can say they work in the off season, but are you getting the right work in? Are you actually getting better? Many countries are going to go through peaks and valleys of whether, players are very good or not. But, it definitely has a level that they're good enough to compete, at that level at.
So yeah, I think this is a good segue to some myth I've heard people talking about it all the time, and I'm not in Taiwan. It's hard for me to judge, but I think you've seen everything. So I think the number one question is like, yeah, it there's a myth out there is like Taiwanese basketball players are not good enough to compete internationally. Obviously, you think that's not true, yeah. But then why? But so there's got to be a reason that Taiwan is performing the way that it is right now. I'm not saying that they don't have the potential, but it's not there yet. And it sounds like what people are working on during the off season, getting into work. And do you think that something's missing, like the proper training or sports science? So people saying like, yeah, what is missing, or what's going to be very critical to take the players out there?
Well, let me say this first. Even though I've coached in Taiwan for a year, I'm no expert on Taiwanese basketball and the history of Taiwanese basketball. I've obviously
but you've seen some of the
about
best players for sure.
I've seen some of the best. I've obviously heard about the golden generation of basketball. We have a couple of those guys. Coaching against some of those guys. But I think it's a mix of different things. Basketball, if you want to compete at the pro level, it's a full-time job. Right. It's not just during the season. It's a full-time job during the off season. Doesn't mean you can take a week off here and there, but if you want to be the best of the best, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, if you really want to succeed at this level, not just be at this level, if you want to succeed, you have to work. Like, you have to work really hard. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to find a new move in the off season. Like, you need to be in the weight room. You need to eat right. You need to know how to take care of your body through recovery, whether that's yoga, Pilates, sauna, cupping therapy, acupuncture, whatever you do to take care of your body. You need to be able to do that, and you need to be coachable. It's okay to ask questions, but it's a full-time job if you really want to get better. And I think the more that you have players that are bought into getting better, especially if you see all it takes is one player to make a jump from one year to the next, and that player to get playing time over somebody else. And if that sparks interest in somebody else, they're like, hey, why is this guy doing it? Well, I see him in the gym. He's in the gym before everybody at practice. He's getting extra shots up. He's getting extra lifts in on his day off. He's doing all this. Well, you can see it. When you can see those visual cues, it starts to spread amongst the other players. And I think the more players that, get bought into that sort of scenario, you're just the better players you're going to have, and it's just going to continue to basketball, and the level is going to continue to increase year after year.
Right. Okay. So that's more on the players' side. But as you know, Taiwan is like the island of tech. And so a lot of engineers, all these things, people are, the show that we do is keyboard experts. And so a bunch of people that can work on the science and the numbers.
Right.
Do you think the sports science aspect or the analytics aspect, I know you're a video coordinator, you're analytics expert as well. Do you think there's room to grow, or there's something that's lagging behind, or, that is not a concern for the moment? What'd you say?
Yeah, no, I think that's something that absolutely needs to grow. And analytics, especially in the States now, because it's used so extensively. Obviously, it'll be used in Europe with some of the best teams, and but it's very important to have access to information.
Right.
And just because you have a lot of information doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but it's how you use that information. Because it was some teams that had analytics departments first in the NBA. Hey, they might have a little bit of an advantage here. They learn, you learn some different numbers on the court. You can tweak your offense and defense towards that, which is how I input a lot of our system. It's based off some analytics, but then all the teams in the NBA, all those teams end up having analytics people. They have access to all that information. So then, hey, it's how you use that information. And obviously you need to have great players. You need to have, great coaches. It all factors in. But I definitely think that's an area that basketball can grow. And it's how would I explain it? It's, you need to put money into that as well.
Yeah.
Because if you can access some of that information, it costs, a decent amount of money to use some of these systems. You need to either hire new people, and it's an investment, but it could absolutely pay off. And I think that's definitely somewhere where it's in the infant stages. Probably, I think some teams use it. Some teams probably don't use it at all. We have a basic version of some analytics that I know that I like, that I've learned over the years that I think is very important. So I think that's something that could absolutely grow within the country.
And especially, there's so many, the fan base is huge, and Taiwanese people are just so good with numbers naturally. Like you could see, a lot of I know some of the analytic people on, I think, Fubon, Weihao Lin. He didn't come from a basketball background. He just loves basketball so much. He just punched in the number, become, analytics from that front. And if this become a job, a legit full-time job, then people can really put in their passion and their expertise together into this too. I think there's a lot of energy out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know, it's funny because, before you'd see a lot of teams, and I'm just going from more the NBA perspective, you'd see a lot of people that hire all at basketball people. And then, especially with Daryl Morey with the Rockets,
totally.
They started hiring guys with zero basketball experience. And it's like, hey, do you have a math degree? Did you go to which school did you go to? Where, can you make some formulas for us? And then all these guys started getting hired in the front office, and then less basketball people started getting jobs. They're like, well, how do I keep up with this? And that's definitely more on the front office side. Obviously the front office and the coaching staff, they'll work together, and you might have access to information, say, hey, this is the information, this is what it shows us, can we figure something out to get to this? Each team has access to unique information. Everyone's trying to get a step up on somebody else. So teams aren't going to share everything that they have access to, but it's definitely something where it becomes more of a full-time job and it's needed. I definitely think more people are going to be interested in doing that.
Right. And of course, that depends on how the league is doing. It's trending really, really good so far. And the bigger it gets, the more job and opportunity it brings to the people with passion. Yeah, it's fantastic. I think the league's on a great path.
You get some of the best local players in Taiwan. You get some extremely high level import players. The coaching is very good. The marketing, the broadcasting, everything they do, fans are fantastic. It's a great product. So it's a great place to be for Taiwan basketball right now.
Yeah. So if you were to describe to your American friends or anyone who's never seen a second of Taiwanese basketball or P League, how would you describe it to someone who had no idea? How would you hey, you got to go watch them?
Yeah, I think, for the basketball here, it is a very high level of play. The players do, they understand concepts. They know how to play. They know how to move the ball. They're coachable. They can grasp concepts quick, which I think is good. And so putting players in a system is easy. I think probably the biggest thing is, the biggest mark is, the creativity level. That's where is probably players struggle the most. And so, there's a saying in the United States is, you need the best players in the world have a brain that works. And I'm not saying the player's brain don't work, but a lot of players, what I say, you don't want to be robotic. And so what a lot of players that I've learned with our team, this is part of the learning process for me being new to it. They're just like, hey, just tell me what to do. Here's point A, here's point B. Just tell me how to get there. I don't want to think, just tell me how it is. Right. This is how it is.
Yeah.
But, basketball is science and art. And that's why I love the game, is because you know everything another team is doing, but the creativity part of it, that's where you can, break different plays off and do different things. And the more creative you can be, the more difficult you are to guard, the harder it is to scout for. That's where, the NBA and some of these players, they're so good because they have that creative ability. I think that's what's lacking the most with Taiwanese basketball. But as far as level of play and understanding and knowing how to play, it's a very high level, and guys know how to play. It's a fun, it's a fun league to be in, and a lot of people that support me and watch the games, they love it. They know it's a high level because they've seen a high level basketball before, and there's no difference, to them for watching the game. You have different levels of highlights. You don't see too many Taiwanese players jumping out of the gym and dunking on somebody, but it's still a super high level play with, really good basketball to watch.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever just sort of like take a step back and it's like, I'm actually coaching Taiwanese basketball, be in the gym with all these people screaming, shouting?
No, not much. But what was fun? I think maybe a little bit was probably, I think our game 4 and game 5 against the Lioneers at home, especially game 3 and game 4 at home. Game 3 and game 4 at home, especially game 4. It was, we had the yellow shirts for our first game, everybody in the black shirts for the second one. It was so loud. Everybody was in support of us, and we beat them from beginning to end. And being able to see the fans support us, our players just be into the game, that was a lot of fun. It was really fun to be a part of that. All of our games against the Braves were sold out, whether it was us at our arena or against them. And I think our overtime game that was just back and forth, especially with Beast and Amigo going back and forth, hitting shot after shot. That was a lot of fun to be a part of, even though we lost. And I'm like, man, why do I don't want to be a part of these fun games where we lose, but that was a lot
still an epic game, right?
Yeah, at least you won once or two. I remember you won twice on football.
Yeah, we beat them. We beat them twice at their place. I think they beat us twice. I think we ended up 3-3 against them, I believe.
So 3 times. Nice.
Yeah. Our first game of the season, or our first home game, we beat them at home because our first game was against the Dreamers on the road. We beat them on the road, then came back and played the Braves and the Dreamers again, back to back. And so beating both of them, the two teams that were in the championship the previous year, that was a great way to start the season for us.
Yeah, you beat Dreamers by 20. At that point, everyone knows about the Kings.
Yeah. It was a good welcome. Welcome to the league party, especially with, we just had one import at the time. Tom was with us. We didn't show a lot in the preseason, and knowing me, we're never going to show a lot in the preseason. So we had a lot of new stuff that we were able to take advantage of in that first game. But yeah, it was a good start to the season for us. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, so a couple more questions before we jump into your journey, because I really, really want to hear your story. So the number one thing, the first question is, as a coach, and I always ask this question, can you coach basketball IQ, or is this a thing that you're born with, and if you're Jason Kidd, you're not?
No, I think it absolutely can be coached. I think what the hardest part is, it's hard to coach feel. You can learn the game. You can learn the game. You can teach yourself the game. It's very hard to learn how to have, a 40-inch vert. It's not something like, hey, how do I do this? There are some limitations, but through film, through playing more than anything else, being able to do things at full speed, that's where you're going to learn the most. Through very, very tough situations where you're going to learn. it absolutely can be learned, to a point. Depending on how much that is, that's up to each individual. I think you can't just say like, I can't just be like, hey, I have this IQ. Here's a player. I can give him all that IQ. Now he's got it. That's not how it works. But feel is an entirely different thing. There's, I think there's a lot of situations with players in the past that I've coached, not talking about Taiwan in particular, but, whether that's the G League or anywhere else where, players play a certain position and they have a great IQ of the position. But when they play, like, man, this guy doesn't have a feel for a position. Like he doesn't know, like he knows it. He can explain it. He can teach it, but to have a feel for it is something totally different, which I think is very, very hard to teach. And that's something that not a lot of people can necessarily get. That's probably the hardest thing, I think, is feel more than IQ.
Yeah. I asked this question because I grew up in Canada, actually just north of Victoria in Vancouver Island. And so that's where Steve Nash was. And we actually had the same coach. And our coach always, like back in the 90s, like Steve Nash was the one and only. And our coach always say like, Steve Nash is just about our height, about our weight, but he's out there, playing in Santa Clara and then made it to the NBA, right? And his school and our school are high school rivalry, so we see his things that he's done and all the things. And then my coach always says like, if you just work like him and then you kind of become Steve Nash, so you're like you can do older drills like the Steve Nash drill, right? And we used to do that too.
Yeah.
But then later on we learned that. Man, it's the hardest thing to be Steve Nash. You can have all the skill set, but the hardest thing is to play like Steve Nash, and that's the hardest thing. And that's when I ask you this question. It's like, fastball IQ is actually really hard.
Yeah, and I think there are players out there that just because you're not as good of a player doesn't mean you don't have a good IQ. And so size makes a huge difference. I mean, the reality of it, basketball is a big man's game. It doesn't mean that small players can't succeed, but basketball is a big man's game. You have more advantages if you're big. Having a feel for the game, is a huge thing. Steve Nash had an incredible feel for the game.
Right.
Being able to run an offense and say, hey, we're going to enter it this way. But, seeing how the defense is playing you and just being able to react and go the other way, break off, it's a different feel. And you can't necessarily teach that, because if you're showing a player on film, just like, hey, if he does this, that means you go this way. And a guy does that, and you're like, well, there's another defender there. Why would you do that? He's like, oh, well, he showed me on film.
You can't program that, right? You can't program that in and write the algorithm.
Exactly. That's a feel thing. And I actually had one of my mentors who, Bill Peterson, who's actually at Baylor now, was one of the most respected player development coaches. He was with Dallas for Dallas Mavericks for a while. He was with Milwaukee Bucks for a while. So he coached Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki, and he would talk about Nash, where he basically told him at some point, I think he got tired of doing dribbling drills with basketball because he had mastered almost everything. Yeah. He'd say he wanted to start doing dribbling drills with a tennis ball. And there are coaches out there who say, you don't do any gimmick stuff. You don't do these unique things with tennis ball or do this different stuff. But he had mastered everything, and I think it's good to give your mind another challenge from time to time. Yeah. And so he would do all these different dribbling drills with the tennis ball, and that was able to push him to something different. It's kind of like being in the weight room. Like, if you want to get stronger, okay, here, I'm going to give you these, 10 lifts to do. You do those 10 lifts. After a while, you're going to get sick of them. You want something new, be able to push yourself. It's the same with basketball wise. So being able to mix it up. I'd say if you ask most coaches, what are the most worthless dribbling drills? Most coaches would say two basketball dribbling drills. But from time to time, it's good to mix it up and just, give the guys a different challenge. Probably 90-95% of the time, I'm never going to be doing 2-ball dribbling drills, but sometimes I will to mix it up and give guys something different, so they can have a different challenge, a different feel of doing something.
it hurts like coaching the kids, like giving them as much stimulation as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I want to ask some questions about player development coach because from your saying, I heard like player development looks like a skill trainer, right? Or player development coach, they will focus on like players' mental side or maybe mind game, etc.
Okay, yeah, you can take that in different contexts. In general, I'd say a player development coach is generally known as someone who's going to work on the player's skills, help them improve their skills, whether that's for them or it's within the system of the team. But there's also player development things that you can do for your mind, for the mental side of things, which is good. Whether that's a mental coach or whatever you have, there's a different side of that as well. But I'd say generally player development is known from more the basketball side of things.
Okay, because in Hong Kong, I don't know Taiwan right now, but in Hong Kong, we got only one coach for a team, so the coach have to handle everything there. So I don't know about like it's very specialized in the America. So yeah.
And I'll put it this way, especially coming through, you can probably hear this through a lot of non-ex-NBA players, especially spending time in the NBA and the G League. If you're not an ex-NBA player, you better be good at everything. Right. Like you're not like if you can't do player development, if you can't work players out, don't try it. If you can't walk through a scout, if you can't teach, if you can't get along with the guys, if you can't build relationships, if you can't do video, if you can't do this, like you're not allowed to have weaknesses. Because if anybody sees at that level, if they see, because you're being watched by one, you have high level players, you have high level personnel, and the investments are incredibly high that people are putting into everybody. If they see you can't do one of those things, they're like, why would I have this guy on? Why would I keep this guy?
You talk about it in Quan podcast. Yeah. Katie will get you out.
Exactly. If you're an ex NBA player, if you're struggling, you're like, he's learning. That's okay. It's totally different. You're not allowed to have a bad leash,
right? You got a longer leash. Yeah.
You're not allowed to have a bad day. So I think that's helped me as well. Being able to do all those different things.
Well, that's so interesting. We're talking about Taiwan basketball, and one of the things that people talk about is like Taiwanese players don't hit clutch free throws. And you were talking about player development, and so can you train this? Can you train clutchness or clutch shots or clutch free throws?
Well, it was funny because so when we started practice, so I missed about 2.5-3 months of practice before I came to Taiwan. So every practice we originally had was taped for me. Like with a scrimmage, closed door scrimmage behind the team. Everything was taped. And I remember our first what was it? Our first game, I can't remember the numbers, but we shot from the free throw line. Like it was disgusting. Like it was awful. Like it was probably around like 40% as a team. Like at best, it was really bad. But it was our first game, and I was just like, okay, maybe it's just like, hey, guys nervous, guys whatever. I was like, these are terrible numbers, but we'll see. And then, it didn't stay that low, but it was still pretty bad. And I'm just like, man, I'm seeing like these guys can shoot, they can do this, they can shoot the ball, they have good form, they can do all this. I was like, why can't none of these guys make free throws?
Oh, so interesting.
I was like,
yeah, that's so true.
But the thing that I learned as I got to be there and actually see how the guys work, they don't take it seriously. And it wasn't just one guy. It was so many players where it's like, hey, shoot your free throws. Like, hey, shoot a free throw. Oh, like, hey, shoot 2 free throws. And shoot 2 free throws, miss 2 free throws, go. And it was the first time it's like, I was like, no, shoot 2 free throws means you make 2. So I stopped saying shoot this many free throws.
You have to say make, right?
Make penalties. And so like, we do some different stuff, so we get, I think we actually ended up being one of the better free throw shooting teams in the league overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it was terrible at first, but, and it just comes down to the work and, if you take it seriously, because it can win and lose you games.
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
I think it starts from the beginning, because it wasn't just one player. It's like, it wasn't just like, hey, Amigo doesn't take free throws seriously, so now nobody else takes free throws seriously. Like that's learned from a younger age at somewhere at some level. And all these guys are from different areas. So it wasn't just one of them. It was many of them. And, it makes a huge difference. So, that's something you have to take seriously. It's something we do take seriously, and, we practice and drill that. But yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed. I was like, I have guys shooting better 3-point percentages than they're shooting free throw percentages. Like, it was crazy. I was like, Shaq would have been better free throw shooters in the league out in Taiwan.
Shaq will be one of the best free throw shooters in this league.
Been one of the best.
Ouch. Oof, that hurts.
Well, for real, I'm saying that in Hong Kong, there's a myth saying that Taiwan player, they just drive all the time and they never know how to shoot. In Hong Kong, I don't know.
Oh, really?
When first time I'm watching plastic game, I'm saying, oh my god, how can free throw shoot like this? I mean, in the first season, we saw some like air ball, etc. And this it become better next season, but it's still it's still very bad. Like a team, the average free throw is around high 60 or low 70. I don't think that's acceptable in professional league.
Yeah. If you're getting, and like I said, it's relative too. And so obviously if we were, I think, we're in the low 70s. I can't remember the exact number. But I think for a good portion of the time, we were better than most of the teams in the league. And so, I'm not just going to say, hey, we need to shoot 85% from the line when these guys have an entire lifetime of not taking free throws seriously. And now, we've been able to work on it. We get to continue to work on it. But yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be improved, not just with our team around the league, but I'm definitely not going to be trying to help any other teams improve their free throw shooting at all.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, Coach. Can we talk about your basketball journey? Because this is definitely something I've been waiting to talk about.
Yeah.
To hear from you. When I first saw your resume, I was like, oh my God, I got blown away. You got technical skills, you got sports coach software, Fat Scout, kinesiologist, FIBA certified basketball coach, scout, video analyst, assistant coach, player development coach, lead assistant, and now the head coach. Can you take us through your journey? How did you get to where you are today, and how did you know you're going to become a coach? When did you decide, like, okay, this is what I want to do?
So yeah, actually, and probably the resume that I sent you is my professional resume. So it actually doesn't show any of my high school or AAU coaching experience that I had for a long time.
Okay.
But I would want to say probably in high school, I knew for sure. So I played 3 sports year round. I played snooker, basketball, baseball competitively, through high school. But my first actually real coaching job, I was in 8th grade. I coached my brother's 5th grade recreational basketball team when I was in 8th grade. And I think my interest was when I was playing AAU basketball in 7th, 8th grade, I had 2 varsity basketball players that were my coaches at the time. And that was the first time that I had younger people that were coaching me. Before it was always parents. It was always, someone who's a little bit older coaching. It was the first time I was like, oh, these are some young guys that are coaching. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, I think I want to try that sometime. So I was able to coach my brother's team, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And basically,
and what kind of team was this? What sport was this?
So it was basketball.
It was basketball. Okay. Yeah.
So I was still young. I was 8th grade. It was funny because I was always young for my grade. So I was always like
a
year younger than everybody in my class.
I was like that too. Yeah.
I was September, kind of on the level. Yeah, I was November, so I was still.
Oh, even later. Yeah, even later. Yeah.
Very end.
Yeah.
And so there were people a grade below me that were older than me as well. But I was still so young. Maybe I was 12. That I needed a parent chaperone basically to be there with me. But I was still able to coach the team. They were just there to make sure like I didn't go crazy.
And you were coaching the older kids, you say?
They were 5th graders. So I was 8th grade and my brother was. I was able to coach his level.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And basically,
that sounds like fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Each year after that, I continued to coach and just, move up a level, 5th to 6th grade, to middle school, to high school. I started my own AAU team as well. So I did, I booked, I had to have like parents pay me. I booked all these tournaments all over in California and
How
Nevada.
young were you at that time? How old were you at that time?
I think I was 16 years
old.
You had your own AAU team already. Wow.
Yeah, I had my
16?
own. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And so I did that.
You really started young.
Yeah, I did. And so that's when I knew, because I was like, man, I can do all this offense. I created all the offense. I created all the drills. Which some of them were probably absolutely terrible at the time, but still that was part of my learning experience. And so being able to do that and then, coach high school basketball, and then get into the pro game and basically work my way up through there. I've just kind of been on the path. I've always wanted to, originally as a kid, I wanted to be an athlete at the highest level. I wanted to be a professional athlete. That didn't happen. So I wanted to coach at the highest level. I've always wanted to be better than everybody at what I was doing. And so that was kind of the path that I wanted to go on. And I've just moved my way up, best that I could. And I've had some lucky breaks along the way as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that doesn't mean acquiring all those skills like scouting, software analysis and everything. Or do you think that's what it takes? Just keep equipping yourself.
Yeah, I think regardless, you should continue to equip yourself with those things that you need. Mm-hmm. I think getting a couple of the breaks that I got with some of the jobs I had helped me acquire some of those skills. It helped me learn some new softwares. Mm-hmm. And when you learn from so many different people, you don't only learn just styles of basketball, but you learn different organizational skills, you learn different people, leadership skills, and you just kind of take the best of what you like, you take what you don't like, and you put that in the list of stuff that you never want to do, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just kind of learn along the way. And me being, like you said, kind of going back to being a non-ex-NBA player, mm-hmm. Acquiring more of these skills doesn't hurt you. It helps you. You need it. An ex-NBA player doesn't need these as much, but I think the NBA does a really good job with their assistant coaches program now, where they have ex-players that want to coach. They teach them a lot of those skills, and they teach them how to use sports code. They teach them how to, do these different things, which I think is really important, because, those are the coaches. If you really want to learn the craft and be good at it, you have to learn some of those things.
Right. Was it hard? Was it hard for you to pick up, all these things? Because I know it could be a barrier, with all the numbers and coding.
No, it was pretty easy for me. I told, I didn't know. So this is how I got the Timberwolves job without ever applying to work for the Timberwolves. So this is actually kind of a crazy story. So my first job out of college, I got a job with the Bakersfield Jam as an mm-hmm. intern. Mm-hmm. And that was during the NBA lockout year. So the NBA mm-hmm. wasn't going at all. Fast forward, take a couple of the details out, but I ended up having someone from the Minnesota Timberwolves reach out to me. They got a hold of my resume somehow, mm-hmm. and they had a video coordinator mm-hmm. opening on their team. They asked mm-hmm. if I was interested. I said, mm-hmm. absolutely. Mm-hmm. And going through that process, they had interest in me, and they asked if I had any sports code software knowledge. Mm-hmm. When I was at San Jose State, we had like a super limited version of that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really know the system or how they did it. And actually, when I'm saying this out loud, it's kind of crazy because they ended up hiring me. But I basically told them, and they had references as well, and they saw that I'd been around basketball. I said, me learning this isn't going to be a problem. Like it's going to be easy. Like if I want to learn it, I'm going to learn it. Like it's as simple as that. And actually, I found some sort of like sports code book. And I think they gave to me like the first day, and like I read it like crazy. It was super thick. Like I read so much of it, and they were teaching it me, and I was like, oh, and that's how you do this. They're like they were actually surprised. They're like, did you actually read some of that book? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I learned it. Yeah, I learned it real quick, and learned how to use it a little bit, and it was just a great way to get into basketball at that level. And I mean, to be honest, I've never wanted to be like a video coordinator at all. Like I don't want to be one. I don't want to go back to being one. I never wanted to be one. But when I was looking up coaches online that weren't ex-players, ex-professionals, a lot of those players had been video coordinators. They had done this, Spoelstra.
Yeah, exactly.
All these guys, even Lawrence Frank, he did that as well. I'm just like, okay, all these guys did this. This has got to be my path. And so to me, it was like, hey, I want to be a video coordinator. Or I didn't want to be a video coordinator. I was like, I need to get this job if I want to get to that level, because they're not just going to give me an assistant job. And so that was my way of getting in. And I just kind of had to wait for my chance to move up to that next level and coach again. And luckily I did have, enough coaching experience where I was just getting that itch to be able to do that again. So when I couldn't coach necessarily during the season, in the summer, I'd run camps, clinics, I'd work players out. That's where I'd continue to coach until I got back to the season again.
Wow. I mean, so at the Timberwolves, on the resume, you said you coached Summer League, but you actually started as a video coordinator.
That was the second time I was with the Timberwolves. I was with them for two different stints. Once during the lockout year, which was 2011, 2012. Okay. And then I think from 17 to 19 16 to 18. So the first year was with Rick Adelman, and the next two, I was with the Iowa Wolves coaching, but I coached over Summer League. That's when Thibodeau was there, and Scott Roth was the coach of Iowa, who's now in NBL Australia with Tasmania. So yeah, I was there for two different stints for 3 years in total.
What was it like working with Thibs?
He's probably the most prepared coach that's out there. Okay. He knows anything and everything. He knows every roster. He knows every play. His practices, you don't waste any time. It's just boom, boom, boom. He knows what he likes. He knows what he doesn't like. He's been around the game for so long. And when you're around guys like that, I mean, if you really care about being good, being great, not just good, you have to look at it as like, okay, if I was coaching against this guy, would I feel just as prepared? If I wouldn't, what do I have to do to get there? And so being able to learn, from him as well, from that sense. And Scott was fantastic as well, incredibly organized and super smart. Being able to learn from those guys and take that, I feel I've been able to take that with me and try to put that into my knowledge base and just try to up my level as a coach as much as I can, as quick as I can.
So do you like Ice?
What's that?
Do you like Ice? His defensive scheme.
Yeah, no, I think, we use that. We use that a lot. Pop did that as well. A lot of NBA teams use that. Some teams do some different things. I know, this summer I was able to see a lot of NBA practices over at Summer League. I know that I still know some guys from the Timberwolves, and I know they do some different things. I think there's probably only a handful of teams that don't do that on the side, but I think there's a time and place for different coverages, and I think being able to have different coverages in your playbook, in your defensive playbook, it's really important.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the different stages. Like, I mean, you were moving from scouts, video coordinator, and then player development, assistant coach, and then eventually the head coach. I guess there's got to be learning curves between each roles. Yeah. What was it like for you? Was it hard? Was it easy? How was it different?
I would say I didn't know when I was a video coordinator, I didn't know how many hours I was just going to be stuck behind a computer. Like,
is that why you didn't want to go back anymore?
Yeah, I mean it's brutal. Like it's brutal. The guys do that, and that's the tough thing too, because then you get to that job, and I'm just like, okay. So for me, all I ever wanted to do was be a video coordinator, so I could get to be a coach. I never wanted to be a video coordinator. But then when you're a video coordinator, what coaches and other people above you will tell you is they'll just start to peg you as a video coordinator. Oh, you're just a video coordinator. You can't do anything on the floor. I was like, wait a second. I was like, all I've done is coach.
Yeah.
I was like this video stuff is new to me. And so you really have to break that mold. Right. Find a way to be able to get out on the court. And so that's why going back over the summer and running my own camps and clinics and working players out, I did that every summer to get that coaching itch back. And when I got my assistant coaching internship with the Erie Bayhawks, Bill Peterson was the head coach. And he told me, and his background's in player development. He's one of the best player development coaches ever. I mean, he's incredible. And he told me, he's like, I don't want a guy who's just going to be behind the computer all day and just cut up film. He's like, I need a guy who's going to be on the court coaching, working with guys.
That's perfect.
It was like music to my ears. Like I just felt. I was like, okay, this will be. That's what I wanted. I mean, that was still a crazy story because he actually wanted to hire me, and he told me like, sorry, we just don't have any money. We can't hire you. And that's where I thought I was on my last chance of maybe working at the pro level. And I said, Coach, I was like, I'll come there for no money. He's like, you'll work for no money? I said, absolutely. And he's like, okay, hold on, let me figure this out. And he called me back within the next day or two. He's like, all right. He's like, you can figure this out. You could do this, do that, whatever. So I didn't make money for the entire season, which I had done that multiple times actually. But, I had told him, he's like, all right. He's like, you're going to be working directly under me. You're going to be doing this. He's like, I don't want you behind the computer. And from then on, and, with his recommendations and everything else, I've never had to be stuck behind the computer since. So,
so it's not easy, right? That's why it took, right? That's why it took for you to get out of that. I mean, take that label off in some way. It was great. Cause it wasn't my first time working on the court. That was the thing. And some people, I don't pass the eye test in pro basketball. People look at me like, oh, what is, like, he doesn't know anything. But I know what I'm doing. Once I get out there, I know I can run a workout and run a practice better than anybody else, or as good as the best in the business. So that's no issue for me. And what's it like to move from pro assistant to pro head coach?
Responsibilities, workload is totally different. Being an assistant coach is easy because you don't have to make any decisions.
Just do your role, right? Just do your thing.
Like you go from being an assistant is I mean, I'm not shitting on assistant coaches. I mean, you have a lot of work to do. You have to be super prepared, but
it's different. It's different. It's gotta be
being
different.
an assistant, your job is to provide suggestions.
Right.
Being a head coach, your job is to provide solutions. So as an assistant coach, you give the head coach as much information as you want, and the way you learn is hey, never take it personally if a coach doesn't take your suggestion, because it's their team, they make the decisions. That's fine. So I never took it personally. Like I could tell a coach 99 different things, 100 different things. He says no every time, that's fine, but I know I'm giving him what I think is best. If he takes it, great. If not, no problem. As a coach, you have to make all those decisions. So now you're asking your staff, you have your idea, and now you hear 4 or 5 other different ideas. Now you have 6 ideas. You choose one of those, boom, like that. Then you have to, organize the entire team. You have to get to know all the players. You have to, organize and communicate with the front office, with the ownership, the fans. There's a lot of different things you have to do, a lot of hats. And I think what I tell a lot of people is, I worked for a lot of different coaches. They would always say, at the beginning of the season, they would always say, don't do anything to put anything extra on my plate. If you guys can figure something out on your own, figure it out on your own. Don't push me. I was like, why is every coach I'm working for saying this? And now I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm like,
take care.
If you guys can
take care of that. Yeah.
Figure it out on your own. It's funny. Yeah. The responsibilities are totally different. It goes from a suggestion-based type of job to a solution-based type job.
That's interesting. So in that front, in the past few years, the NBA ex-players, some of them has gone straight to a head coach without going through assistant coach, and some have worked, some have not worked, and the jury's still out there for Steve Nash, right?
Yes.
What do you think of that? What do you think of player going straight from player to head coach? Going through the ranks?
Personally, I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy, but being around the business, it doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I would like, you would hope that regardless of your playing experience, that you would learn a little bit as an assistant. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be there for, you need to be 5 years as an assistant before you can be a head coach. I don't care about that. But you want to see people learn the ins and outs. You want to, not necessarily like an apprenticeship or, internship or whatever, but you want to see, what is it like to run a coaches meeting? What is it like to do a scout? What is it like to be behind the scenes in those coaches meetings? Going through all those different things, working with good players, working with bad players, working with players who don't want to practice, putting an entire scouting report plan together for your team not to execute it. How do you figure that out? Being able to do that, I think, is super valuable. And even just a year of doing that, I think would be super valuable to a lot of coaches. But I understand it's easy to hire a point guard a la Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Chauncey Billups, these type of guys to do that. But I do think getting some of that experience is really important. You look at Ty Lue, he was an assistant for a while, and now people absolutely love him. I mean, he does some really good stuff. I'm curious to see what Darvin Ham does. He's been on the sidelines for a long time.
Even Jason Kidd's success came after he became assistant to Frank Vogel.
Lakers,
he had some very tough situations, and I haven't heard about this as much in the basketball world, but I do follow coaches in different sports, and I like to follow football a lot. And I know some football coaches said, if you get fired as a head coach and you just immediately get another head coaching job, you're probably going to keep doing the same stuff, over and over. And you're probably never really going to learn, from your experiences, because you never see the way anybody else does it. You never
see. That's right.
Learn how to do that. I've always thought it's important to be able to work under somebody different. Right. To be able to see how somebody else works. And maybe that did help Jason Kidd being able to, he had those, he was with the Bucks. Right. He was with the Nets knocking water on the court. Being able to be an assistant and step back, not have to make all this, to see how something different run. I guarantee you some good things from it. And I know some guys who are in the Dallas system who like how they're doing stuff, and the stories they heard is different from how he's doing stuff now. So I'm sure he learned some different ways of doing things. I think it's really important to be able to learn and do and get a little experience somehow before stepping into that role, because if you don't have anybody to learn from, you're just, it can be difficult.
Yeah. And we're witnessing that one after another, really.
That's a very, I don't think it's a very unique situation, especially that Nash is in right now. I mean, that's not easy, because he's dealing with basketball stuff. Is
Seriously,
what he's having to do.
there was a knock on him saying like, "Oh, you mean the white player always get the chance, right?" And I was like, "Who wants to be in his shoes right now? Raise your hand. Who wants to be in your shoes?" But coach, thank you so much. It was beautiful. I can go on for another hour, but we gotta let you go. But for all the new first-time guests on our show,
let me ask one last question. So
you're
we just
running
heard
out my
that
time. Hurry up!
We heard that you have signed a multiple contract with New Taipei Kings. In last year, that everyone are fascinated about your offense and etc. But now you have a few more years. So do you have anything that you want to develop in the next few years, like on defense, on team culture, playing styles?
Yeah, I think you constantly have to develop on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is, tweaking our offense, tweaking our defense. There will be similar concepts you see, but there's going to be different stuff. Now that, a lot of teams have copied some of the stuff we do, we're not just going to keep running the same offense. Like, we'll have similar concepts, but we're going to be doing different things. We might have a few of the same plays here and there because, stuff works. We don't want to get away from that. But, on the defensive and offensive side, we want to continue to grow, and we want guys to really learn the system. The more that you can actually learn the system and understand the details in and out within the same system without changing it too much, it really helps our guys play faster, make their decisions quicker, so they don't have to keep learning new things over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thanks for your time. And one last.
Yeah, we got to play this game. Yeah, we always play this game with our first-time guests. It's called 5 for 5 plus 1. It's actually just 5. And then so 5 questions, and then plus 1 is the additional question that's the same for everyone. Essentially, you just pick one. It's like this is just an example, like the 2 Kings, Sacramento Kings or New Taipei Kings, and then you just pick one. There's no right answer, and it's meant for you to struggle, and it's totally fine. There's no right answer, and it's just for the fun of it.
Right.
Something less serious. Okay, so question 1. The 100-degree summer heat in California or the 70% humidity in Taipei?
Oh, so I haven't been to that humidity there, but I lived in Vietnam, so I'll just take the 100-degree heat out here. I don't like wearing wet clothes the second I go outside in humidity. So
it's all right. It's all right with you to be in the dry heat.
I've lived in tough weather. Like Vietnam was really bad.
Vietnam's got to be really, really bad. Yeah.
Brutal. So I know what to deal with on that side, but I'll take the dry heat.
Good. I guess that's why you're there right now.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, next question. Soccer or baseball?
Soccer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love baseball. I love baseball. I grew up, it was probably the first sport, that I played, but I was soccer, basketball, baseball year round, but I'd say it's easier for me to watch and yell the soccer game. Baseball's like, baseball game. I'm probably gonna drink if I'm gonna go to a baseball game and talk a little bit more.
If you go to a baseball game in Taiwan, you get busy. You gotta follow all the things that you do.
I'm waiting. That's actually one thing I want, because I wasn't able to do that last year, so I want to be able to see a game when I come back. So
yeah, it's fun. It's a whole different experience. The baseball culture in Taiwan is really, really unique. Even for me, it's.
I went to. I lived in Korea, and I went to a couple of baseball games.
A little bit.
And I was like, man, this is different, but it was fun. So I'm sure like there's some unique aspects about it. So hopefully I can get to see a couple games when I come back over there.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, being an NBA coach or an NBA player?
Player.
Do you still want to be a player?
Oh yeah. If that was a chance, like I think there's nothing better than, being in the locker room, being with your teammates, being able to compete, having the fans cheer for you, having them boo. I think it's just, being a player, so fun if you can do it at that level. Yeah. Absolutely.
Especially you can retire as a player and then become a coach. So
exactly.
You get both of the best ones. Thereafter. Yeah. All right. Okay, next question. Nick Nurse or Spoelstra?
Oh wow, that's a really tough one.
Exactly.
Oh man, damn, you got me with that one. I love both. I love Nick Nurse. I'll probably go with Nick. I'll definitely go with Nick Nurse. His path is super similar to mine.
Okay.
We both coached in Iowa. We both coached for
right.
the same team out in Iowa. Mm-hmm. He had coached overseas. He's not part. I still think he's super underrated as a coach.
Still underrated.
Still underrated.
Wow.
I just think he's not talked about in that, like, he's not at that level that people like. He's not part of the good old boys club. Spoelstra is fantastic though. Like, I've only heard good things from people that have worked with him, that are with him. Like, I haven't heard anything bad about him. I think both of them are two of the best coaches in the league. But I'd definitely go for Nurse. I think, mine and his paths are very similar. I think he's a coach's coach, and he's done it in very, very tough circumstances.
I just love his brilliance, being flexible, being able to cope with everything, and hustle, energy, but also positive attitude.
Yeah.
He's the biggest non-Canadian. He's the biggest non-Canadian hero in Canada.
Right. So actually, to go back to when the Raptors were playing the Warriors,
right?
A lot of coaches around the league, especially in the G League, no one really cared about whether it was like the Warriors or Raptors won, but everyone wanted Nick Nurse to win a championship because we were coaches in the business who just put more, respect on coaches who are grinding and trying to figure it out. And the fact that he's gone through that level like so many of us had, it was just a huge thing. So yeah, I would go with Nurse with that one.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great response. Yeah, I mean, he gotta be representing all of you, right? All the coaches that's coaching the
he's
leagues.
Yeah, he's kind of unofficial like leader for all of us.
That's awesome. All right, maybe that should have been the last question, but here we go. Last one is it's the Steve Nash versus Kevon Looney question. Is the super Hall of Famer that has never won versus a super role player that has multiple rings?
Yeah, give me Steve Nash. I'm gonna go with Steve Nash.
So would you rather have a career like Steve Nash than Kevon Looney?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it'd be greght to win a championship. Playing like a role. Not
one championship. We're talking about 5 championships.
Yeah, well, we go to a few different people, but I think I don't think Looney, and no disrespect to Looney because he was fantastic in the role that he played this last year, but Steve Nash is one of the all-time greats as a player. He was amazing, and you talk about Nash, and obviously just because he's outspoken, Charles Barkley. If people, I personally think, because I've watched a lot of Charles Barkley's old games, he was, I think, the first basketball player I got his autograph as well. He's the first pro player who gave me his autograph. But I think if the first thing you say about Charles was he never won, then you never saw him play because he was an animal.
Oh, exactly. Obviously.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was incredible. And some guys played in the Michael Jordan era and just couldn't win. I mean, Barkley, Malone, Stockton, a lot of these guys, like, it's tough. It's not easy to do, but I think I would take Nash. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, winning the rings would be great, but Hall of Famer, no doubt, one of the best to ever do.
All right. So the last question, the +1 question, is the same for everyone, and it's Michael Jordan or LeBron James.
Jordan.
It's not even a question.
Not even.
I mean, you're from the Bay Area. It's not even a question.
Jordan.
All right. Yeah. All right, Coach. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words before we sign off?
No, I mean, I think thanks for having me. I had a fun time chatting. It gets my juices flowing. It feels like the season's about to start now. Just talking hoops again.
I know.
But hope you guys and whoever tunes into this can watch some of our games. Support us throughout the season. I think you're going to see some exciting basketball if you tune in and watch us play this year.
Definitely, Coach Marchand and the new Taipei Kings. Thank you so much. I had a great time, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to you again. Good luck for the season.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, fellas.
各位小人物们，如果你喜欢小人物上篮，欢迎上 Facebook 或 Instagram 跟我们互动，也请帮忙分享给身边爱篮球的朋友们。也欢迎大家成为小人物会员。如果你在台湾，可以上 Zack； 如果你在全世界其他地方的小人物，也可以上 Patreon 支持我们。让我们一起让小人物上篮继续成长。感恩啊！
小人物上篮，小人物上篮，小人物上篮，小人物上篮，小人物上篮。